Real people,
on South Sudan.
real stories, real music, real radio. This is iRadio, your eye on South Sudan. iRadio, your eye on South Sudan.
This is iRadio.
Sounds of the week on iRadio.
السياسيين القاعدين العشرة ده بكون ما عندهم صوت أو يعمل حاجة للجنوبيين عشان من عمل غلط نمرة واحد من عمل بيوت ولا ده تانيين ده كينيا ده يوغندا ده وين إن شاء الله الدولة ده يعمل مشكلة للجنوبيين من ما عشان شنو اليالو قاعدين هنا قال قروش وزادوا قاعدين هنا البرنامج بتوعهم كانوا قاعدين بدولة تانيين ده سبب نمرة واحد على الناس السياسيين ناس اللي في جنوب السودان بكون ما عندهم صوت يساعد الجنوبيين عشان أي برنامج بتوعهم بس ما قاعد في جنوب السودان يعني يوغندي ناس اللي شاب جنوب السودان ده بتعامل بدو ما بعرفين قال الدولة لو من كان بعرفين قال حاجة الدولة إذا ما بكلم على كيف وتقول هل كده في جنوب السودان لو ده برنامج لا قابل ما هو هنا حدود يمشي يتكلم يرجع معلوم زول يرجع في جنوب السودان خلي الناس بتاعنا الأول فدائي يقبل جنوب السودان ده دولة بتوع من المسؤولين منه خلي من يعمل الإسلام عشان الجنوبيين يقبل بالسلام ودي حاجات كل للجيش بتاعنا يكون معاه كل يكون مايا يكون مساعدات عسكرية ما يكون جيش بتاع كده ويكون جيش بتاع كده كان يكون جيش بتاع الدولة يدافع الجنوبيين.
Sounds of the week on iRadio, your eye on South Sudan. Live from Juba, on air and online.
This is iRadio News.
Hello, good afternoon. This is iRadio News. First, here are the headlines. Civil society activists, religious leaders, women and youth have lobbied the visiting African Union Peace and Security Council to call for the release of SPLMIO detainees. Retired Anglican Bishop Enoch Tombe has called for the compulsory retirement of liberation-era leaders accompanied by generous retirement packages to make way for professionals who can drive the country's development and state-building efforts. And as South Sudan prepares to mark International Youth Day tomorrow, some young people have voiced concerns over their limited representation at decision-making tables. These stories and more coming to you in this news bulletin with me, Baria Johnson, and now the news in detail. Civil society activists, religious leaders, women and youth have lobbied the visiting African Union Peace and Security Council to call for the release of SPLMIO detainees. They also urged the unity government to initiate dialogue on the full implementation of the revitalized peace agreement. This is according to Edmond Yakani, the Executive Director of Community Empowerment for Progress Organization. He said during their meeting with the delegation in Juba yesterday, they urged for the conduct of free, fair and credible elections in December 2026 for people to choose their leaders. Yakani called on the African Union to double its efforts in pushing for lasting peace in South Sudan. He spoke to iRadio yesterday.
We call upon the members of the AU Peace and Security Council to lobby our leaders to commence an urgent, inclusive political dialogue to resolve the current political stalemate that the country is facing. And we say the dialogue must be inclusive, involving every member and leadership of the parties that are signatory to our access. And this made us to call for the release of the political detainees from SPLMIO and their leadership to make sure that they engage in the dialogue constructively. And of course, His Excellency Vice President is signatory to our access and name in the our access. We hope that our concern will be taken up seriously by the members of the AU Peace and Security Council in their lobby with the leadership of the country. The second thing we discuss is the viability of the elections, and we say elections is the only viable option for transitioning the country from violence to peace.
Since the arrest of first Vice President Dr. Riek Machar Teny and his key party members in April, no formal charges have been brought against them. The opposition leaders are accused of inciting the Nasir violence during which the White Army attacked and overran an SSPDF base. Retired Anglican Bishop Enoch Tombe has called for the compulsory retirement of liberation-era leaders, accompanied by generous retirement packages to make way for professionals who can drive the country's development and state-building efforts. Speaking during iRadio's podcast on Friday, Bishop Tombe praised the leadership that emerged from South Sudan's liberation struggle for their critical role in achieving independence. However, he emphasized that these liberation leaders are no longer suited to address the challenges of modern nation building. The religious leader explained that guns are instruments of destruction, not construction, and building the country requires professionals such as medical doctors, engineers, architects, and IT experts.
So when it comes to leadership, this is the leadership which came out of liberation struggle. They know how to fight, right? And they succeeded, right? But now we need another leadership to do nation estate building. You cannot use the gun for it. Peter Nyaba has actually mentioned this, that we need another, not the same tool. You can't use the gun to build it. The gun is for destruction. But when you want to build, now you have to bring professionals, medical doctors, engineers, agriculturists, IT, you know. Even there are people now who cannot even use IT, you know. So we should use the younger people. In fact, for me, I've been saying anybody now 65 should retire. So what we need is a compulsory retirement for these elders. Anybody above 65 must go, and then give them their, what they call, retirement packages. I'm telling you, they will be very happy. So if the government want to follow example, we are ready to give advice.
Bishop Tombe proposed a clear retirement policy suggesting anyone over 65 should retire and be granted retirement packages. He also recommended that those who remain physically fit be appointed as envoys to keep them engaged and comfortable. Bishop Tombe cited growing sentiment that South Sudan's future depends on revitalizing its leadership by bringing in professionals with the expertise to tackle the country's development challenges. As South Sudan prepares to mark International Youth Day tomorrow, some young people have voiced concerns over their limited representation at decision-making tables. The International Youth Day is globally observed on 12 August to draw attention of governments and stakeholders on issues affecting the youth. The theme for 2025 International Youth Day is Local Youth Actions for the SDGs and Beyond, which places a strong emphasis on the transformative role of young people in the localization of the Sustainable Development Goals. According to Emmanuel William Atit, Secretary General of the South Sudan National Youth Union, the government needs to have the will to engage youth in decision-making table. He added that sometimes the Youth Union is not involved in the selection process of individuals appointed to represent young people in decision-making processes. Emmanuel made the remarks on iRadio's Zone 72 Youth program over the weekend.
The government need to have that will to engage the young people. And that's why I've been calling on all the young people. We need to stand together to advocate for our own right. But sometimes even us at the National Youth Union, we just find that there is a program going on and there is someone there that he or she is representing the youth. How did he come or she come? I don't know. Why? Because they have to bring the person according to the person who will dance to their tune. But also I've said that the National Youth Union is non-partisan. We were not supposed to involve in this direct, like this issue of political parties and the rest. But ours is to advocate on behalf of the young people and to be an advisory body to the government.
For his part, Abraham Pieng, Program Officer for the youth-led organization Shabab Le Shabab, says young people have become partial participants in the decision-making processes.
The biggest problem also is the issue of involvement of the young people in decision making, because young people, they become a partial participant in the decision making process. They don't have a voice For example, if we ask ourselves, out the signatories of the peace agreement, how many young people are signed there? Because the people who have even signed there, these are people who are having their own political interests. You get it? And these are the people, even if we go to the correct definitions of the word youth, by the constitution of the youth union, those people are not youth, because we have the strict definition of the youth and we have the real definition of the youth that is in the constitution. So, and I think also this is also one of the biggest problems that is affecting the world. And those young people who are having opportunity to participate in the decision making space, they become puppets. So they become the yes man. Whatever the people say, they just say what? They second or yes for it, because they have an interest that they wanted to protect.
You are listening to iRadio Afternoon News. The Minister of Environment and Forestry, Josephine Napun Cosmas, has expressed frustration over the slow progress in securing climate finance to support national climate change projects. Speaking on state-owned South Sudan Broadcasting Corporation on Sunday, Minister Napun said funding is critical to implementing climate treaties and policies. She stressed the need to implement the loss and damage funds, which she said have remained stalled despite years of discussions. Napun also emphasized the need to operationalize the loss and damage fund. Her remarks come ahead of the COP30, the 30th conference of the parties to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, due to take place in Brazil from 10th to 21st November 2025.
One of our priorities is actually climate finance, which we know that it is very critical in the implementation of our climate strategies and policies. This has been a concern, and every year we talk about it in all the COPs, but it seems there is nothing that is materializing, because without funding, we can do nothing special on our projects on the climate change. And then the second priority that we have is capitalization and operationalization of the loss and damage funds. And you understand that very well. It has also been a topic every year. We have been talking about this. And we believe that with this COP30, something will come out of this meeting that we are going to.
COP29, held earlier this year, focused on setting a new global climate finance target to replace the current $100 billion a year goal, which expires in 2025. The new target is expected to guide funding until 2030. Discussions at the summit is centered on how much support developed countries should provide to help developing nations cut emissions, adapt to climate impacts, and address loss and damage. Meanwhile, British Ambassador to South Sudan David Ashley highlighted the country's vulnerability to climate change. He said South Sudan is the second most at-risk country in the world and called for urgent global action. And finally, South Sudan's petroleum authorities have announced plans to reduce oil production costs while increasing output this year. The announcement was made during a weekend visit to the Paluch oil field by a petroleum delegation led by the Undersecretary in the Ministry of Petroleum, Engineer Deng Lualwol. The visit covered key installations including Pumping Station 1, the power plant, and field processing facilities. Engineer Deng said the ministry's current priority is the human capacity building through training of technicians and engineers to enable South Sudanese workers to eventually take full control of oil operations.
If the cost has increased, that will impact on the entitlement of the government. So our target this year is to minimize the costs and increase the production. In the oil industry this year is for the human development, capacity building, starting from the technician, skill, engineers, for us to be able to take over.
South Sudan currently produces around 100,000 barrels of oil per day, but officials warn that rising operational costs could reduce national revenues. Meanwhile, DPOC manager Engineer Mawien Kon believes in the maintenance and repair of existing wells as a more cost-effective and time-efficient method to boost production compared to drilling new wells.
So if you want to increase your production, using the easiest way to keep the plateau or to sustain the production, just you go for workover instead of drilling new well. Less cost, less time, and getting more oil.
South Sudan's oil export continued to face challenges following the outbreak of war in Sudan in 2023. The country relies on Sudanese infrastructure to transport crude oil to international markets, making stability along the export route essential to maintaining vital revenue streams. You're listening to iRadio News, and now for the regional and international news, we are joined by my colleague Madrama James.
Thanks, my colleague Baria Johnson. Let's have a look at some of the stories trending around the globe. Kenyan's former deputy president has accused President William Ruto of supplying weapons to the Rapid Support Forces (RSF) in Sudan. Rigathi Gachagua alleges that these weapons have been used by RSF in attacks that have killed women and children. He claims that President William Ruto and RSF leader Himiti have business ties. On Saturday, Gachagua was ordered to record a statement in which he asserted that President William Ruto's administration has ties to terrorist organizations. According to Kenyan diaspora media reports, Gachagua maintains that he owes no explanation to the Kenyan government over the terrorism allegations. Elsewhere, Watoto Church in Uganda on Sunday, August 10th, announced the dismissal of one of its pastors of allegations of sexual immorality. According to Ugandan media, Watoto Church leadership in a video message broadcast to all its branches affirmed its commitment to high moral standard and expectation, and that its leader will amplify them. Pastor Julius, the team leader at Watoto Church Ministry, described the incident as unfortunate and one that undermines the core values of the institute. Finally, Australia will recognize a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly in September, following a similar move by the UK, France and Canada. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has said. Albanese said Australia received commitment from the Palestinian Authority, including its demilitarized hold general elections and continue to recognize Israel's rights to exist. Israel, under increasing pressure to end the war in Gaza, has said recognizing a Palestinian state rewards terrorism. Those are some of the stories making headlines in the region and beyond. Back to you, my colleague Baria Johnson.
Thank you, Madrama. And now for the sports news, we are joined by my colleague Darlington Moses.
Thank you so much, Baria Johnson. And now to the sport. The Confederations of African Football (CAF) has announced the preliminary round draw for the 2025-2026 African Club of competitions held for the first time in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania on August 9th, 2025. South Sudan Premier League champions Jamus will face Sudan's Al Hilal in the CAF Champions League, while Al Merrikh Bentiu, runners-up in the South Sudan Cup, will meet Tanzania's Azam FC in the Confederation Cup. The first preliminary round kicks off on September 19th, 2025, followed by the second round starting October 17th, 2025. Group stage matches in both competitions begin November 21st, 2025. Crystal Palace started the new seasons with a certainly familiar feeling, basking in trophy glory as triumphant underdogs at Wembley. The FA Cup holders beat Premier League champions Liverpool 3-2 on penalties after a 2-2 draw to win an enthralling Community Shield on Sunday. Goalkeeper Dean Henderson was the stood-out hero for Palace as he served from Alexis McAllister and Harvey Elliott, while Mohamed Salah sent his kick over the bar. It allowed 21-year-old midfielder Justin Denevey, sent on a stoppage time substitute, to smash the winning penalty past Alisson. Palace, who has never won major trophies in their history until this year, have now earned 2 of the 3 months at Wembley, having snatched the first at Man City's expense. British number 2 Cameron Norrie is out of the Cincinnati Open after suffering a second-round loss to veteran Roberto Bautista Agut. Norrie recently beat the world number 53 in 4 sets at Wimbledon, with his first round win sparking a run to a quarterfinals at the All England Club. At the At the 32nd seed in Ohio, Nori had a first round bye before meeting the 37-year-old Spaniard, but with the temperature passing 30 degrees Celsius, he seemed to struggle in the heat on the way to 6-4, 6-3 defeat. Nori's last outing came at the Canadian Open, where he was beaten by world number 99 Alexander Vukic in the second round. He continued his U.S. Open operations in Cincinnati, and Bautista Agut did well to hold his serve following 3 lengthy games while breaking Norris in the 4th game. I am Darlington Moses. This is all in the world of sport, and back to you, Baria Johnson.
Thank you, Darlington Moses. You're listening to iRadio News, and to end this bulletin, here's a recap of the main headlines. Civil society activists, religious leaders, women and youth have lobbied the visiting African Union Peace and Security Council to call for the release of the SPLMIO detainees. Retired Anglican Bishop Enoch Tombe has called for the compulsory retirement of liberation-era leaders, accompanied by generous retirement packages, to make way for professionals who can drive the country's development and state-building efforts. And as South Sudan prepares to mark International Youth Day tomorrow, some young people have voiced concerns over their limited representation at decision-making tables. That's the end of iRadio Afternoon News. If there is a story or an event you would like iRadio to cover or report about, please send us a text message on +211 925 287 It's also our WhatsApp number. Follow us on X at iRadio Juba, like our Facebook page iRadio, subscribe to our YouTube channel at iRadio South Sudan. You can also visit our website and listen to us online at www.iradio.org. Stay tuned for the news in Arabic at 12:30. I am Baria Johnson. Thank you for listening.